Sponsorships across women's sports. We're going to hear from the marketing and strategy executives that are leading women's sports to new heights. They're going to join us on stage and discuss the most successful, innovative, and surprising partnerships that they have encountered. So, holding us down is our moderator, Sophie Goldschhmidt, President and CEO of US Ski and Snowboard. And our speakers, Tracy Hughes, Vice President of Women's and the Collective at Wasserman. Hi, Tracy. Good to see you. Sorry, I'm like catching up with people on the stage. Emily Sisson, the Senior Vice President of Sponsorships, Athlete, and Partner Marketing at One Team Partners. Round of applause for them.
Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here and with my esteemed guests, Emily and Tracy, and hopefully we're going to have a good session here. So very good timing to be in New York this week to discuss this topic. Congratulations again to the Liberty and WNBA. What an amazing final series, but overall season for them. Off the back of that, maybe if I can start by asking you, who have you been most impressed with in both the final series, but just in general across the WNBA playoffs?
The players. I think an incredible show of talent. But I also think brands like Google Pixel, who have leaned in for the full season and also have supported the players through the PA relationship, has been really amazing to see. They've been able to capture them in an incredible way during the WNBA All-Star Game. And that partnership with the PA and other PAs has really come to light in a great way, showcasing the women and all their beauty, thanks to L'Oreal. But I think in general, Google Pixel and the way that they've been able to storytell and everything else that they've done with the league and the PA.
Yeah, well said. Shout out to Kate Johnson. I don't think she's here, but she's been amazing. Fellow Park City native. So there we go. Maybe broadening that out, and Tracy, throwing it over to you. Sort of maybe broader than just the WNBA and the amazing final series we just had. Which brands in general have you been impressed with in the women's space, working with athletes and properties?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of brands that are getting it right, and I'll say the ones that are getting it right are the ones that are doing the research and the work to find the stories that most authentically connect with their company or the product or whatever they're trying to push out. I mean, we have a ton of examples. We represent a ton of players across the WNBA, but one of the most recent ones is Delta, right? Stepping up to become the league's first official charter sponsor. And I mean, that alone being such an important part of these players and being able to play all these games and travel every other day, and not only just becoming a league sponsor, but then also clicking into athletes like Nneka Ogwumike or Breanna Stewart to be ambassadors of the brand, right? And tell their story and their love for Delta as a brand aside from what they're doing with the league. So I think they're doing a great job. CarMax has done a great job. I think we saw their commercials every other time out during the finals. You know what Sue was gonna say every time. You start just repeating it. But there's a ton of brands that are doing it right, and I think it's because they're finding the athletes that most connect with their brand.
Yeah, no, great point. Emily, anyone else that stood out to you?
During the finals specifically?
No, just more broadly across women's sports.
More broadly, I think we all heard the buzz about Aflac and what they did to supplement the three-point contest and the skills challenge, and really stepping up to the plate in a way that was meaningful to Alicia Gray and everything that's been able to happen because of that partnership. And I think the brands that I'm most impressed with are the ones, very similar to what Tracy said, that look at it from a dynamic perspective. So it's not just title sponsorship or looking at the biggest media buy. It's finding the most diverse, integrated, and really thoughtful partnership, and making sure that it's something that is solving a problem that either the players are having, maybe the league is having, the players associations are having, and working kind of from the inside out on how we develop those sponsorships. So I think we have a room full of a lot of media buyers and investors, but I think one of the things that I would encourage people to do is seek some specialty areas. So if you're a creative or if you're a media buyer, reach out to somebody that maybe understands the nuances of sports sponsorship. so we can identify areas of opportunity where maybe it's not the typical sponsorship. Maybe it is a sponsorship of a players association or an individual that has a passion point. So I would say let's start thinking about sponsorship in a way that's very different than we have before, and maybe more traditional. In general, it's our time to change the game in sponsorship, specifically in women's sports, and I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I mean, unfortunately, the baseline is still quite low in women's sports. So there's a lot of challenges that they shouldn't have to deal with that they are. So you can really solve some problems, you know, if you look at it authentically and find the right brands. Sort of on that note, what's the biggest hurdle you still find in the partnership side in attracting brands to women's sports?
I mean, I think there's several, but I think today what I want to shine a light on is, you know, the landscape of how partnerships are being built out. I think what we consider traditional marketing, a player would show up to a shoot, the content would be created for them, they put it on their platforms. They're being looked at more as creators these days with the change in social media. So they're having to do more work, capture their own content, because that's what is connecting with the consumer better, and you're getting more reach and more engagement, all the things that are helping move this thing forward. So I think for us, it's not necessarily a hurdle in a bad way, but we've had to adjust our infrastructure and put the resources around our clients to help them be able to continue to perform on the court, but also be able to deliver the content that the brands are asking for, so that they're continuing to reach the numbers and help move this forward.
Yeah. Anything from your side, Emily?
I think it's the evaluation, the conversation that we had around investment in women's sports. We had a conversation actually back in the locker room, that's the green room, about how we need to look at the way evaluation is being done differently. And Karen from UTA mentioned it very specifically about how she built a new evaluation tool. And it's not just about CPMs anymore. It's about the way that the fan and the viewers are engaging with the brands that are investing, and making sure that people who are investing understand that, per a Wasserman study, 58% of sports fans are women's sports fans, and then we know 54% of those people will invest in a brand or buy a brand if they are invested in women's sports. So I think it's something where we have to make sure that people understand the investment, they understand where their investment's going, how it's going to work when they do invest in the sport, and making sure, again, that it's something where it's the inside-out approach, like I've said before, like truly meaningful, but it's also so nuanced that bringing in somebody who's an expert in that area is truly important.
Great. Emily, another one for you. What's one of the best-kept secrets in sponsorship?
I don't know if it's a best-kept secret. There's two answers here. I think investing in women's sports, but specifically with the athletes, because they're going to show up better than you'll ever imagine. I don't know, like, I'm going to ask everybody, but raise your hand if you've invested in women's sports, if you've made like a direct investment. I think everybody's hand should be up because you're here at this conference. But I think in general, it's, you know, making sure that they're investing in athletes and they understand what's meaningful to them, because they're going to show up better than ever. I also think investing in players associations. So all of those problems that we heard Becca talk about, you're going to hear Terry speak about in just a moment. There is a way that you can directly impact an athlete's life, and also the collective group of athletes, when you invest with the Players Association. So I would just say the biggest hurdle is getting people to think a little bit differently about where they're directing their dollars, and it's not the same sponsorship game anymore. It's changing.
Great. Tracy, for you, obviously you work with a lot of brands and a lot of athletes. Why are brands getting it right in this space? Which ones have you been really impressed with from that standpoint? They're getting it in a way that others aren't.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it, and I hit on it earlier. It's like how you are engaging with the athlete, right? Are you bringing an idea to them and asking for feedback so that whatever story you're trying to communicate is truly authentic? And I think it just creates better engagement on both sides. The athlete is excited to be there. They're excited to show up. They're excited to be a part. I'll talk about Brianna Stewart, one of our clients, right? She signed with Puma, and Puma's fairly new in the athletic footwear space on the women's side, and they've done such a phenomenal job with telling her story through her shoes, through her apparel, and it's all coming from what she said is important to her. So it's not like this magic trick that they're coming up with. They're listening to her. They're going back to the drawing board, building out marketing plans, building out apparel designs that are coming directly from her. And because of that, she feels heard, she feels valued, and then in return, you see how it comes to life to the marketplace. So I think it's just that, listening to the athletes. They'll tell you what they want. They're the ones with the influence. They're the ones who are, our fans and consumers are following it, and they're helping kind of drive where we're going.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Another one, we touched on this a little bit, Emily. You gave a couple of stats, but in general, we still hear quite a lot that the audiences aren't big enough. It's tough for brands to justify investing in women's sports. We know, thanks to a lot of work from different groups, that isn't true. Yeah, the audience is fragmented, but it's there. It's just still quite hard to find. Just touch on that. How is that trend changing? What is the sort of research out there that this audience could tap into, or that you share with brands to really get them engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I think I shared the stats specifically around, the way that the fans engage with brands that invest in women's sports. I think the biggest thing that we can do is just, make sure that we're educating brands on the ways that they can get into the marketplace. You can do your straight media deal, and that's going to be something that's going to be impactful, especially with this new TV agreement. But I think in general, it's telling people the different ways that they can get in, and also making sure that when they are in, that they have the dollars to activate, and making sure that they're spending in ways that are impactful, such as player deals, as well as great activations on the ground and socially and digitally.
Anything else from your side? No, the collective obviously has done a lot of great work in this space as well.
What do you want me to
Well, just linked to research in general, how it's improving. Obviously, still a long way to go, but there's some great data out there now that can help the pitch and help make this more compelling to brands.
Yeah, I mean, research is driving it, right? It tells you what the consumer wants. And so the collective has done a great job with that, and then also giving people the toolkits on how to apply it. So I think, research really helps, even when, you talk about reach, right? Like, I think for a long time we heard on the NBA side, they have millions of followers, but on the women's side, they don't. But you can have 1 million followers and your engagement be low, right? So shining light on that, it's not just a number, it's how are people interacting with our clients, both in all the ways, and it goes across the board with ticket sales and merch sales and all of that. So I think research is something that we rely on heavily, because it also changes the conversation, and it's a fact.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that's great about what you all do at Wasserman is you make that information available to everybody. And you were the first to the game to really do that, from like a information sharing. So there's data points that you can point to with that. There's, a lot of other information that's out there. I think the one thing that's been really interesting to me, and this was something that one of my colleagues pointed out to me about, the viewership of the WNBA, and, there's the peak of, certain games around certain players, and that's because there was coverage of that. So I still think that we're lacking in that sense, and I do think that hopefully the new TV deal will give some equitable viewership opportunities. But in women's sports in general, and this is something that I've said for a very long time in my previous role at Octagon, but we have to make sure that people can view women's sports, and we have to make sure that people can engage with women's sports. So, the market will bear what it will bear. So there's an opportunity for a sponsor to come in and really make it accessible for women's sports to be viewed in a very, very simple way. And maybe it's not just, they're on a variety of platforms. We're all investing in it. If you're buying media, it's in a variety of ways. But let's create a resource for people to be able to view, engage, and to ultimately kind of create that flywheel that will help put more money through women's sports in an easier way.
Yeah, it's a great point. And so going back to Google, and I guess Ally as well did a good job on that, sort of demanding that the media companies put it on mainstream networks, especially the big games, et cetera, and they would spend, But I think, again, for the buyers and brands in this room, they can really help change that paradigm. They have a lot of power to kind of accelerate these improvements. Moving on, just sort of the power of the athlete voice. We're seeing this, across all sports now. They're understanding their worth. They're willing to say no. We've seen it, just in the last couple of days, opting out of, another CBA. Just share some insight about that. What is their mentality, and do you see that trend continuing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we help also inform how our clients are listening or thinking about their brands, right? By building a strategy around them, building brand pillars that, okay, what are we focusing on? What do you want to stand for? And I think when you do that, you don't feel like you have to do everything and be everywhere. And because there are more opportunities at the table, clients feel more comfortable saying yes to the things that they care about and, passing on things that are not. So I think, that has changed because the opportunities available are increasing. But along with that, they understand that, like, if I don't stand for that, I don't need to do it. And I think that's super important. I think if you go back maybe even to the beginning of the WNBA or just before 5 years ago, it's like there was this happy to be here mindset. And I think you see with the clients, the players opting out and all of that, it's like they understand that, they do have a voice, they do have a point of view, and when they come together and stand united on it, that it moves things forward. And so that's super important. We empower our clients to do that, and I think the product is better. And I think Diamond DeShield tweeted it, earlier this week. It's like the product has been good. And now that people are here, people are watching, people care, people want to invest, all right, what are we going to do with that? And there's enough there should be more. We have a longer way to go, but I don't have to do everything and be everything for everybody to want you to stay here because the product has been good and now you're watching and we have you here as a fan.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. I mean, just the confidence they've got now to stand up, which I think makes them attractive to brands and just, around societal issues as well. I mean, they're really moving the needle. Emily, anything from your side that you'd add to that?
No, I mean, yes, I do have something to say about that. I think Jane hit on it. She said, like, we want to be paid. Like, these are incredible athletes. And, Becca Rue and the team at the U.S. Women's National Team PA did an incredible job, on equal pay. And that set the standard. And when we were having the conversation about, like, naming rights and having facilities, build a facility. Don't build a women's facility. Build a facility for elite athletes because that's what they are and that's what they've deserved for a very, very long time. And I know, there was a conversation earlier with an owner about, what the CBA means, and obviously there's an opportunity for, her to not comment on certain things, but they're not just happy to be here. They want to earn what they're worth. They want to create their own businesses. They want to be able to invest in a way they want to invest, and these women are elite athletes. And just like we would negotiate our salaries, they're going to do that too, and I think that's incredible that they have the opportunity to do it. And I also think it's incredible that we have paths that have been paved for us 50 years ago, many, many years ago, a couple of years ago, and I think it's only going to get more progressive.
Yeah, totally agree. Moving back just to the sort of the general evolving sponsorship proposition, but we were talking a little bit beforehand about sort of old habits die hard. And you've talked about a little bit, Tracy, just the athletes understanding their value, sort of more broadly than that. And I think it came up on a panel earlier, sort of giving away tickets, discounting, sort of a little bit, again, having the confidence to really stand for what you think you are worth and what the value of an experience is. Can you just talk about what you're seeing there, where you think it is heading, and how that's going to improve kind of the value proposition for brands moving forward?
I think there's still a little bit of the same old that's happening in some situations. I would encourage, especially if there's sports marketing agencies in the room, to have honest conversations with the properties that you're working with. I'm looking over here to Ashley Marisak, one of my dear friends, and we negotiated a lot of deals together in our previous lives. And we would sit in a room and literally tell a property, no, that doesn't work for us. We want to do things that are game-changing. And we want to make sure that we are solving the problem, and the problem is going to be solved authentically. And when we're doing a brand video or when we're doing something, we need to make sure that it's going to come through in a really, really clear way and it's easy to understand. We don't want mumble jumble. And that was honestly when we did the Aflac deal with the WNBPA. That happened on a telephone call on Thursday from Michael Goldschhmidt over here. And I was like, am I going to be able to do this? I'm going to be in Texas for MLB All-Star, then I have to fly to Phoenix. And it was the most fun deal I've ever worked on, because it was proving a point and it was making things the way that it should be. And I appreciate the WNBPA's partnership and their trust that they put in us to get that done. And that wouldn't have happened without CAA, and then also Garth and the team at Aflac. Like, they want to do things that are meaningful, and they want to do things that are going to tell a story and prove a point. And I am forever grateful for that deal that we've ever done, and the lesson that Ashley taught me to consistently push and push and push, because if a property is going to say no, it might not be the best partnership for you.
Yeah, well said. Anything else that you think the audience should know as far as sort of where the future's heading with women's sports, and why we should be confident and why it looks so bright? I know change has been slower than we would all want. Often the commercial kind of cycle is a little bit behind maybe the appetite and the demand we're seeing from fans, but any other insights?
I think I would leave you all with, when we keep talking about everyone watches women's sports or invest in women's sports, let's just continue to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable and telling diverse stories. I think it's easy to go to the most popular player or the most well-known player, but there are so many incredible stories within women's sports, and there's so many people that are tapping into them, but continue to push the people on the inside of your organization to not do the easy thing or the checkbox, or have a checkbox mindset of like, okay, we have a woman, great, okay, she won this, great. There's so many great stories, and be a fan, pay attention, follow the people that are doing the work so that you guys know what is going on and that those stories are being uplifted, because just like, we're putting it on our athletes to make sure that they're growing their social channels and all these different things that we're being told matter, it also matters that the people that have the power to spend the money and use their platforms to elevate those stories are doing that research and work too.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think in general, a lot of these female athletes are just so well-rounded, and they don't need to be the stars. What I think we hear time and time again is just the relatability to the average person, and so just being able to share what they've been through and what they stand for can be so impactful. Emily, anything from your perspective that you feel we should know more about? You're obviously doing great work with all of your different.
Thank you. I think it's these women mean business. And we're really excited about, what the future holds, because there's going to be incredible stories, incredible investment, new things built for these women the way that it should be. And I'm thrilled to be working in women's sports and with, people like Tracy and everything that we have to, really conquer and to build upon. So I would just say in 1999, I think there's a lot of people in this room that probably wish they would have invested in women's sports and would have been riding that wave for, 25 years. But I think the time is now, and we're seeing the change, and there's incredible women inside the boardroom and also outside the boardroom on the court making a difference. And I think we're going to see, the tide change and demands being met, and us seeing one another over the boardroom table makes it a little bit easy to get some deals done and do it in a really fun and authentic way.
Yeah, love that. Well, it's great to have you both in such important roles, clearly making a big difference and with a real focus and determination. So very inspiring. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and look forward to the rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.